Hey everyone, and welcome to PyTW. I'm Brian, and today we're talking about Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He doesn't just hold his ground, he consistently knocks it out of the park. Time and time again, he goes head-to-head with Kaitlan who often just sits back and lets him speak. So, what's really happening in Congress? Let's dive in.
You say Democrats are lying when they say you're going to cut Medicaid. The plan that you passed does instruct the House Energy and Commerce Committee to find $880 billion in cuts, right?
That's right. That's one of the
committees. So how did they get $880 billion in cuts from that committee without touching Medicaid?
Because ENC has it actually has the broadest jurisdiction of any committee in Congress. It covers everything, energy and commerce. You know, the name indicates how broad the jurisdiction is. I challenge you or anybody on your staff, do a word search for Medicaid on the resolution that we passed last night. You will not find it. That is not part of this equation, okay? We're talking about finding efficiencies in every program, but not cutting benefits for people who rightly deserve that. Work requirements for Medicaid. That is something that is public opinion polls almost 90%. You don't want able-bodied workers on a program that is intended, for example, for single mothers with 2 small children who's just trying to make it. That's what Medicaid is for, not for 29-year-old males sitting on their couches playing video games. We're going to find those guys and we're going to send them back to work. That's what everybody supports. That's what the Republicans are for. And by the way, we find dignity in our work. That's going to be good for everybody.
And I want to follow up on that, but on that Energy and Commerce Committee, the vast majority of funds that they have are Medicare and Medicaid. So when you talk about $880 billion...
That's simply not true.
So where are you cutting from within that committee?
Energy and Commerce's jurisdiction would take us 20 pages to go through, Kaitlan. They've got almost everything in the U.S. economy. There are large pools in the healthcare components, but we're not going to cut benefits for people who rightfully deserve it. And watch this play out. Just reserve your judgment. The White House has said that we're not going to do that. The House Republicans have said we're not going to do that. And Senator Kennedy said, hell no. Okay, so you heard it from the Senate, the House, and the White House. So let's let this play out. We have a long football game to play. Last night was the kickoff of the game. So just watch it play out and you'll see. I think the American people are going to benefit greatly by the package that we're going to produce for them. We are going to deliver the America First agenda, and it's going to be good for everybody. We're going to spur economic growth. We're going to cut regulations. We're going to cut the deep state and the bureaucracy to make government more efficient. We're going to secure the border. We're going to get energy dominance back again for our country that is long overdue. And we're going to spur on the U.S. economy. And by the way, Kaitlan, the big drive of all this is to ensure we don't have the largest tax increase in U.S. history at the end of this year, which is what will happen if we don't get this bill passed. I mean, the average U.S. taxpayer is going to have a 22% tax hike.
Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate a good football reference, but you just mentioned work requirements and maybe changing that. Will you reduce the federal match or try to establish a cap on federal funding as you sort through this for Medicaid?
No, I just explained. Per capita caps is off the table. The FMAPs, we're not going to cut into those programs that way. What we are going to do is present this large tax increase. You realize if we don't pass this bill, small businesses, 26 million businesses in this country, their tax rates are going to go up to 43% overnight if we don't get this bill passed. So we have no margin for error. We have to get this done, and we will. We're going to deliver on this mission for the American people.
Yeah, I was just asking because, as you know, your home state of Louisiana, about 80% of the Medicaid spending there is covered by the federal government. We've seen it in a lot of red states, of course, across the United States. It's not just a blue state issue. As you have seen through this, and we've seen the blowback that some Republicans in your caucus are getting when they go back home to their districts, worried about these cuts or worried about what DOJ is doing. Do you have concerns that that's anything that Democrats will be able to use to run against those Republicans?
No, no, I don't. Because the videos you saw of the town halls were for paid protesters in many of those places. These are Democrats who went to the events early and filled up the seats. If the videos had panned
You can't argue they were all paid protesters, though, Mr. Speaker.
Many of them were.
A Republican acknowledged they were his constituents.
One Republican acknowledged they were his constituents. That's fantastic. Okay, but they had Democrats come and fill the seats early, all right? This is an old playbook that they pulled out and ran, and it made it look like that what is happening in Washington is unpopular. But I'm going to tell you, Kaitlan, The American people are behind what's happening. The DOGE efforts is polling over 80% right now. They want us to find efficiencies in the federal government. They want the government to be smaller and leaner and more accountable to the taxpayers. And that's what these efforts are all about.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, you're absolutely right. DOGE is incredibly popular among everyday Americans. You know what isn't? The so-called average American that Democrats in cities like Roswell claim to represent. Now, I'll get back to legislative politics in a moment. Medicaid, the potential government shutdown, and tax cuts. But first, something important. Representative Rich McCormick from the northern Atlanta suburbs recently faced a tough town hall in a largely Democratic area. He expected a smooth event, but instead got a crowd ready to challenge him. The media spun this as angry Americans everywhere. But in reality, it was mostly angry Democrats and a few anti-Trump Republicans. Now, the bigger picture, Speaker Mike Johnson is playing a long game. We're weeks away from a possible shutdown, and if tax cuts expire, taxes will spike back to pre-Trump levels. This flaw in Paul Ryan's plan assumed a Trump 2020 victory, which didn't happen, leaving a small window to act. Let's clarify, this isn't a government shutdown issue, it's about tax cuts. If nothing is done, taxes jump, and Johnson is working to prevent that. He's also made it clear that drastic Medicaid cuts are off the table. Politico reports GOP leaders have privately assured lawmakers that key services will be protected, and Johnson has drawn a red line against deep cuts. The real strategy? Negotiation. Republicans don't need Democratic support to pass this bill, though Thomas Massie has complicated things. Still, this is classic legislative maneuvering. Crucially, Donald Trump does not want Medicaid cuts. He knows the political cost. Johnson, meanwhile, is positioning himself as a hardliner to strengthen negotiations. The likely result, a stronger bill before the March 14th deadline. This is legislative politics at its finest. Kaitlan Collins tried to corner Johnson, but it didn't work. She claimed DOGE is unpopular. He cited an 80% approval rating. She warned of draconian cuts. He shut that down. Politico confirms the real strategy at play. This is Washington in action, positioning, messaging, and playing the long game. I'm excited to see how it unfolds. That's it for this segment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you in the next one.